So, what is going on with the adoption of electric vehicles and the transition from gasoline vehicles to electric vehicles? Well, here's a report from the ICF, which is a climate center that tracks the transition to green energy. And this report is called The Impact of Electric Vehicles. And the headline, U.S. is not on track to achieve its climate goals. Well, what does that mean? The official goals of the U.S. is to achieve a net zero economy by 2050, requiring a transition to electric vehicles 100%. In fact, today we'll do a video a little bit later where the state of California is looking to ban the sale of gasoline vehicles within the next 10 years. That's going to be a pretty significant transition. The other important part is an energy to power all these new EVs. And it even says clean energy to power the EVs. I don't even know if we have any kind of energy, clean or not clean, to power it right now. Having it be all clean energy will be even greater task. Let's take a look at the numbers in more detail. So here's quote number one. It says, EV adoption is surging, reaching many goals set by automakers and policymakers. That's who's setting these goals. Will require extensive changes that go far beyond the vehicles on the road. Transformation will be felt across auto manufacturing, type of infrastructure, power generation, distribution, and even how people use vehicles. So they know this is more than just switching out the cars. It's going to change a lot about the use of transportation in the country. A key to it is getting the electricity that charges these cars to come from clean sources. Charging EVs with clean electricity is critical to the reduction. Without that, the total transportation emission reductions by 2050 are limited to 67%, meaning that it's not going to make a difference if we switch to EVs unless the way the electricity is generated is also not creating emissions. And they reflect that. The amount of electrification will have significant implications for utility reliability. The peak hour impact is especially critical for EV charging, which, if unmanaged, could add nearly 450 gigawatts per hour to peak demand in the late afternoon. At the same time, electrical demand already peaks today with few EVs on the road. What they're saying is, unless they come up with additional capacity, there's not enough electricity to power these cars, even using existing electrical generation. It goes on to say, unless managed, EV charging could strain the grid to the point of compromising power reliability. That's your key right here. This is on page 12 of 20. Buried down the page, unless managed, electric vehicle charging could strain the grid to compromising power reliability. What's their solution? One thing they're talking about is managing the peaks due to EV charging, meaning that maybe they either suggest or prohibit you from charging at certain times. They say that will be difficult, but load flexibility can play a key role. For example, co-locating batteries with EV chargers. So you don't just have a charger connected to the grid, you have a battery there too. So now instead of just having a charger, you have to have a battery on location as well to be able to store electricity during times when there's not peak demand. They also talk about electric vehicles can be a distributed energy generation by discharging electricity from the batteries back to the grid during times of peak demand. Well, keep in mind that discharging batteries this way reduces the useful life of the battery on that vehicle. So if they're counting on vehicles backfilling the grid, that might hurt the vehicle. How complicated is this? They say the necessary transmission infrastructure to support that demand of renewable deployment can take decades of financing, planning, and permitting. So they're saying right here that it's going to take decades to get the grid up, but they want this capacity to be available. They want all the cars to be replaced within 10 years. Timelines don't match. And they warn the power companies to be prepared for this. Increasing the number of EVs on the road will have significant impacts on the power grid. In moderate states, relative to 2020, electricity demand will increase 13% by 2035 and 31% by 2050. That's a high demand bar to meet according to this article. The bottom line is that utilities, state regulators, and policymakers need to start modeling how EV adoption rates will impact electricity demand. And they talk about managed charging. What does managed charging mean? That probably means that they're going to restrict when and how much you can charge up an electric vehicle. That's what managed charging means. So be aware that you want to plan for your trips and your travel and transportation to make sure that not only do you have access to charging stations, but you're able and allowed to charge from them at that time. So their 4 takeaways are: they want to continue to advance EV adoption and adoption of the charging infrastructure. They say that you want to give information. They want to get investments, meaning that government funded programs, actions from all parties. Careful planning, location of charging stations is critical to support. They also want to make sure the power sector is prepared for this. Prepare for electric grid impacts. Utilities will need to provide solutions and technologies for these demands, including peak load in the coming decades. So this is an important document because it lays out what the plans are for electric vehicle adoption. Doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. This is how the policymakers are planning for the rollout of electric vehicles. And it's going to happen one way or another. So planning for your future of transportation, employment, maybe recreation, around how this is going to affect your normal use of a motor vehicle is important, because how you use a vehicle today might be different based on the limitations and capabilities of electric vehicles in the future. Tell us what you think in the comments, and we'll see you on the next video.